Hello, friend, and welcome in. Today, I want to talk about my December wrap up. I actually read a lot of books in December. I read a total of 12, which is quite a lot for me. I did not expect to read that many because my kids were home for the holiday break, but they unfortunately were sick again. That's been the story for the last year and a half. And then I am now starting to feel a little under the weather, so my voice is not the best right now. But I wanted to talk about all the great books that I read in December. I feel like it was a pretty decent reading month. So the first book that I read was A Land So Wide by Aaron Craig. And this is about a small town in Canada, a town where the people are stuck there. They cannot escape. The town does protect them. There are warding stones around the town. It keeps them safe from creatures that are outside of the town. Unfortunately, when night falls, if you are outside of these stones, these protection stones, then you get just sucked back in. And it doesn't matter if you are out in the woods and there are trees or stones or anything in between you and that town, you're going to get sucked back in and it could kill you, basically. So everyone knows to get back into the town before nightfall. Our girl, her name is Greer, she wants to and dreams of basically escaping this town and exploring. She is a map maker. One day, she is out in the woods and she is not quite past the stones, but she's pretty close to one area. And the love of her life walks past the stones just as night is falling. He does not get sucked back into the town. So she is panicked, trying to figure out what is happening. And it's her story of figuring out how to venture past the wards as well as bringing him back. Because when he crossed past the stones, the creature that is outside of the woods was stalking him. And so she knows that his life is in danger. She also doesn't know why he left her, but she is determined to save his life and to bring him back home. I gave it 3.5 stars. It really reminded me of Aaron's Craig's Small Favors. I really loved that book. And it also reminded me of The Village. So the first half was really, really good. I liked our main female character and I liked the story up until basically the halfway point. The second half of the book just did not live up to the first part. We also have these creatures that you're supposed to be afraid of, but there was too much going on with the creatures, too many things happening. It was like trying to cram too many different things into like one scary monster. So I was not really a fan of the second half or of the creatures in this book. But the first part was really, really good. Then I read book one in the Threadmenders Chronicles. It is House of Blight. I really, really enjoyed reading this book. It was very unique. So we have our main character. She is a Threadmender. And what that means is that she can potentially heal people, but it has a very high price. So when she heals people, she actually loses a little part of her essence, like a little part of her life. So she is taking years of her off of her life in order to heal someone else. So she does not use her powers very often. In fact, one day her brothers, they work in the mines of this town. The Fae basically are the hierarchy. They're not called Fae, they're called something else, but that's what they are. They are basically the Fae. And the main man, Fae man, who is responsible for her area, she lives in his kingdom, he comes to town unexpectedly one day. The same day he comes to town, her brothers end up getting ill with this, it's called blight. So it is a horrible disease that is just kills people within hours. It has been going on and on for years. In fact, her parents died of it pretty quickly. And she is just beside herself. She is hysterical. she decides that she's going to use her powers to heal her brothers. Unfortunately, the Fae ruler discovers what she is doing and he stops her. He says, "Now I will put them in basically like stasis, and this way, hopefully, the blight does not continue to make them ill, and we can buy some time because you are not strong enough to heal them. But I also need a healer. I need a threadmender to come to my castle, to come to my area, and we need to figure out what is causing this blight, how to heal it properly." So he takes her and they make a deal. That is their deal. She is going to figure out how to cure this because there is also someone who he cares about. It's actually like the matriarch of the family. She is ill with this blight and he needs her to be cured as well. Things, of course, are not what they seem when she gets there. There's lots of twists and turns. There was actually a in the middle of part of this, you have like this big like twist, and I should have seen it coming, but I didn't. So I was very pleasantly surprised and enjoyed this book. I thought that it was super creative and fun. It was a pretty quick, fast paced read. I enjoyed all of the characters. We do end up getting a love triangle. I thought that that was really well written. There was a few times where I was like screaming at the main female character, like, "What are you thinking? No, no." And so it was just a really fun time for me. And I gave it 4.5 stars. I really enjoyed it. Then I read Shadow Princess. It is book 4 in the Zodiac Academy series. So I'm not going to get into details, but it's also about Fae. And at a college, two princesses uh, have discovered that they are Fae in book 1. And book 4 just picks up where book 3 left off. I gave it 4 stars. I enjoy reading this series so far and will continue to read this throughout the rest of the year. Then I read Spinning Silver. This is a Rumpelstiltskin retelling. It's a YA fantasy novel, and I really, really liked this. I only have one hang up, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit. So we follow these 3 young girls. We have a moneylender's daughter, a farmer's daughter, and a duke's daughter. With the moneylender and the farmer's daughter, both of them are in just horrible situations. The moneylender, her dad is a moneylender. Her grandfather was a moneylender. Her dad is horrible at it though. So they are extremely poor. They are starving because her dad will not go out and figure out how to get the money back once he lends it away. So the moneylender's daughter, she has learned from her grandfather and by seeing what her father is doing, she is pretty smart and she knows how to run this business. When her mother gets horribly sick and is dying, she says enough is enough. So she takes matters into her own hands and she goes out into the town and she starts collecting all these debts and she threatens them. She says, either you're going to pay this back, and if you can't pay it back with money, then you're going to give me something that is of equal value, or I'm getting the police involved and I'm getting my grandfather involved. And everyone knows her grandfather, even though he lives in the city and this is the town. Everyone knows her grandfather. He has quite the reputation. So they're like, okay, we'll listen to you. And then the farmer's daughter, the moneylender's daughter, goes to that house to collect. And he's like, we're poor, we have nothing. And the dad is a drunk there. He's quite abusive to all 3 of his children. And so she says, well, I'm going to take your daughter and she's going to work off your debts. And so that's how the farmer's daughter comes into play. She starts working for the moneylender's daughter. During this, as the 2 of them are getting closer, we also have the duke's daughter. She comes into play later on, about a third of the way into the book, I would say. But the moneylender's daughter gets quite the reputation for being able to turn silver into gold. She has quite the touch, which this attracts the Fae. And the Fae show up to her house one day. The prince does, or I guess he's the king. He's the king of like winter, and he says, "I'm going to make a deal with you. I want you to take my silver and turn it into gold because gold is very important to his kingdom." And she does. She figures out a way to take his silver and she takes it into the city. She finds, I guess he's kind of like a blacksmith, but he also can make like crowns and necklaces and rings and different things. And they make it into a ring and then they sell it to the Duke of the city. So she makes back double what she had originally been given. She takes some of it, hides it away. The rest, she goes to the bank. She makes sure that she has gold for it, and she gives that to a faking. And this goes back and forth. This happens a few times to the point where he is like, okay, if you can do it this last time, then I'll make you my queen and you'll come with me to my kingdom. And that's her storyline, which is the main storyline. And then the farmer's daughter has been running things back in the small town while the moneylender's daughter is dealing with the Fae. And then the Duke's daughter gets drug into this because her father wants to use all of this special silver that has been turned into a ring, a crown, and a necklace. He wants to attract the king and trick him into marrying his daughter. So we have all these different points of views coming into play, all of these different storylines intersecting, and these women have to figure out how to survive their circumstances as well as work together to better life for all three of them. Not only hang up, I loved the story, I loved the way it was written, I've really enjoyed the characters, was the point of views. It was very strange because you would be reading one point of view, and then either on the same page or the next page, it would change point of views. And at first I was like, wait, who is this again? Like, which one is this? It's not the same person because we're in a different part. So I just felt like it needed to be cleaned up a little bit better. And maybe so actually told which point of view you're starting off rather than just all of a sudden you're in a different point of view. So that was my only hang up with this. But I will read more from this author and I'm excited to read another book by them. Next up, Direbound. So this is a fantasy novel, well, fantasy romance novel. We also have a little bit of a love triangle in here. It is Fourth Wing, but with dire wolves. I loved this book. I gave it 4.5 stars. I enjoyed the storyline. I enjoyed the writing. We have our main female character. She is a fighter and she is trying her best to make ends meet. She is taking care of her sick mother and she's also taking care of her younger sister. There's quite an age gap in between them, and she has basically raised her sister her entire life. So she fights in order to put food on the table and to pay their bills. Her sister ends up getting kidnapped, and she is getting kidnapped by the vampires that are also involved in this story. You have the kingdom of the direwolves that is at war with the vampires, and kids have been coming up missing in our main character in her town for a while, and they know that they are being stolen and being used. So she enlists in the army because she thinks if I go to the army, I'll be placed on the front lines, and then I can track down because she's very good at tracking and stuff. And she goes and fighting, so she knows she's gonna find her sister. Well, this year it's not just about enlisting in the army. There is a contest to see who will be paired with a dire wolf. Unfortunately for her, as she sees, she gets paired with a dire wolf. There's trials involved. She gets paired with a wolf. The wolf does not like her, and she's not really crazy about the wolf either. But they have to figure out how to work together in order to not just win this war, but also to save this girl's sister. With the love triangle that happens, You have very beginning, she is in love with this man. He's not exactly who he seems to be, and she finds out later on that he has kind of been lying to her and he is more than what he presented himself as. And then she also is starting to fall for, he is an alpha and his wolf is an alpha, and he is the leader of not her unit but of another unit. And it's the not just the main story, but it's their story with the three of them as well. I enjoyed it. My hang up, with this was she has a nickname that the first man in her life, her boyfriend is has given her, as well as I guess some other people have given her. And I hated that nickname. Every time I heard that nickname, every time it was said, it was repeated way too much. And it was just like, oh, made me cringe. It just made me cringe, and I didn't like it. But it was fast paced, and I did enjoy the banter though overall. So I do recommend that book. And then my favorite book. I had already filmed my favorite reads of 2025, so this was not on there. But this is the book that I am. Hopefully, there's another book in 2026 that will top this. I don't know, but this is the standard so far. This was my book of the month pick for December, We Who Will Die. I had read Stasia Stark. I started her other series. I've only read book one. I really enjoyed that. And so I was really excited about this. This is based in the Roman Empire times. That's like the backdrop. But it is a fantasy novel. Does also have a little bit of a love triangle. We have vampires in here. We have an evil emperor that needs to be brought down. We have gladiators as well with our girl. She is also a fighter, and she is the caregiver of her twin brothers. She was a gladiator. She did trials 6 years prior to when this book starts. She won those trials, but she did get injured. We also have the fact that she has powers, but she's never fully came into her powers, and neither has she been able to do much. Other humans have powers, and they're kind of divided into, you have gold, silver, and bronze. Gold is supposed to be the most powerful, and then silver, and then bronze. And as your power grows, your mark that is on your forehead, that also gets larger as well. And so our girl, she has her mark that's never really grown or gotten any bigger. It's just staying the same. Here we are 6 years later, after she had won her trials. It should have been a better situation for her, but it is not. She has one brother that is sick and dying. Her uncle had made off with her winnings, and she is trying to make ends meet by just being a bodyguard to certain people because that's all she can really do at this point. She's not making a lot of money. She gets home from one of her jobs, and there is a vampire waiting for her, threatening her brothers, takes them hostage, and she has to do the trials all over again and go into the arena because the vampire wants her to kill the emperor. And she has no other choice but to enter into these trials. And when she gets there, she meets two men. One is the prince's son, and the other is the vampire that hurt and broke her heart. I loved the writing. I loved the story. I loved all of the characters. There's also sort of like a murder mystery kind of going on in the background of all of this. It was so good. I could not put it down. It's very fast paced. I'm so excited for the next book. I cannot wait for that to be released. I will be buying it as soon as it comes out as well. It was a 5-star read for me. It was my favorite of 2025 as well as my favorite in December. Then I read Nocticadia. So this was my first book by Carrie Lake. It is a dark academia romance novel. It was really well. So the first half was straight up just like a horror novel, and I have been really wanting to read more horror novels as well as thrillers. So it was really good. We have our main girl. She watches her mother die of this just horrific disease. She has been infected with like these worm creatures, and it just completely destroyed her mom. And her mom dies. She sees all of this happen, and it freaks her out. But when the police come and everything, after the police come, they don't see what she saw before she passes out. They don't see these worms, they don't see these creatures. And so she's told, even when she gets the coroner's report, that she imagined everything, that her mother had self exited and that she had imagined what she saw. But she knows what she saw, and she knows that everyone is lying to her, and she doesn't understand why. So she writes a paper because now it's been several years later. She is in college. She is in a horrible situation with her sister, younger sister's dad, and she is trying to pay for not just her to go to school, but for her younger sister to also attend the special school as well. That's really been helping her younger sister, because her younger sister also has trauma from the mother dying too. Well, when she writes this report for her community college, it was about a fictional made up disease, which hers, she wrote exactly everything that happened to her mother. She presented it as she just made this up. Well, it catches the eye of one of the professors. Professor studied at this elite university that was studying Nocticadia. And Nocticadia is actually these worms and how they affect humans when you are infected with them. But it's very kept hush hush. Her paper was so well written, and the fact that she knows about these parasites, that that gets her into this elite university. The story goes from there. It's a forbidden romance between her and one of the professors, as well as trying to figure out this disease, this parasite. And then there's also the secret society that's involved, and some murders happening as well. It was a really good read. It was very creepy. Very, very creepy. Definitely, Carrie Lake's writing for horror is really, really good. I am excited to read more by this author, and I have several of her books on like my yearly TBR. So excited about that. And then I read Brimstone. It is the sequel to Quicksilver. I'm going to need to reread that because I found myself skimming it. I don't know if it was because I had just read two long books back to back, and I was just, I don't know. I think it was me. I don't think it was the book. I think it was me. I'm not sure. But I will have to revisit that. So I'm not really going to, I mean, it's book two in a series, so I can't say much about it anyways. But I can't really tell you what I rated it because I need to go back. There was some editing mistakes too that was kind of throwing me off. And so I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if it's the book or if it was me. But we'll revisit that. I think I'll do a reread later on in the year, and we'll see more of my thoughts then. I also read a thriller novel, Julie Chan is Dead. I gave this 3.75 stars. We have our main character, Julie. She has a twin who is an influencer. Her sister's name is Chloe. One day she gets this unexpected phone call from Chloe, and it sounds like Chloe, something's happened to her. She tries to call Chloe back because the phone disconnects and she cannot get through to her. She tracks Chloe down eventually, and when she gets there, Chloe is dead. But because they're twins, they look identical. And so everyone just assumes when she calls this in that it's Julie that's dead and not Chloe. And Julie thinks this is her golden opportunity to take over her sister's life and prove herself. But things were not what she expected. Chloe was involved with some stuff. I don't want to give too much away, but it was definitely a good thriller. My only hangup was this was very rooted for the most part in reality. And then all of a sudden it takes a turn into sort of like the paranormal. And I think if they had left the paranormal out and just kept it a thriller rooted in mostly reality, I would have liked this a lot better than how it was. So the twist towards the end, I didn't like that. But I liked everything up until there. I also read Never Ever After. I gave this 3.75 stars. I had read a book by this author previously, and I really liked that book. That was Immortal. I really enjoyed it. This is also, it's a Chinese fantasy novel. It's sort of like a Cinderella retelling in a way. We have our young girl, she is a thief, and she finds out that she might have some magical abilities, some magical powers, but her ring gets stolen and by her step aunt, who is a horrible person. So she follows her step aunt to the kingdom, to the castle area to go, and she's going to get her ring back. She needs it back. She ends up crossing paths with the emperor and catches his eye. She also catches the eye of a neighboring kingdom's advisor who is there as they're hosting other allies and stuff. And she ends up needing to go on an adventure with the neighboring kingdom's advisor in order to rescue this woman who has been kidnapped in order to get her ring back from the emperor. And it's that story, that adventure, as well as her figuring out herself and her own powers and her own abilities. I also read The Rose Bargain. So I gave this 3 stars. I had read Thorn Season previously last year, and I really liked Thorn Season, and this was compared to that. So I went in having high hopes, but it was not what I was expecting. The first half was good, the ending was good, the middle was just okay. We have it set in an alternate kind of universe where the kingdom is run by a Fae queen who has taken over during like the Rose Wars. And now we have 100 or so, however many years later, she is still alive. She is still running England. All of the young women and men who come to court when they are of age and are presented to her, they make a bargain. It is called the Rose Bargain with the Queen. They gain something, but then they also lose something because she takes something from there. Our main female character, her sister's bargain did not go the way anyone planned, anyone wanted. Her sister, I guess it seems, made a very bad bargain. And our main character, she is determined to save her sister and save her family because they have now fallen on terrible times because of the bargain her sister made. Well, when she gets to court for her season, she finds out that the Fae Prince, well, he is looking for a wife and he is going to choose from the girls of this season. So she ends up, she sees this as her chance to better her situation, her family situation. And she enters into the contest to win his hand in marriage, basically. She also crosses paths with the human prince. There is a love triangle, and it's just about her trials, her striking a bargain with the human prince in order to try and bring down the evil Fae Queen. It was just okay. The writing was, everything was just okay. Nothing really stood out. It wasn't a bad book, but it also wasn't a good book. It was just one of those. It was a book and I read it. And then the last book in December that I read was a gothic horror thriller novel, The Hong Kong Widow. This book was so good. We follow May. She, at the start, is an 80-year-old woman. But this is her story. So we get three timelines. We see her as a small child, the age of 5. We see her as a 20-year-old young woman. And we also see her as an 80-year-old woman. Her daughter at the beginning wants her to go back to this home that she escaped from years prior in China. There was a mass murder that took place at this home. This is not the first mass murder. Throughout the years, this house has had multiple mass killings in it. And her daughter wants her to go back and to confront her past. Her daughter wants to write about it. Her daughter is also dealing with her own grief, and she's kind of fixated on this. So our main actor, she can see ghosts. And what had happened previous years prior was she had gotten kind of tricked into going to this house in order to perform 6 different seances. That was the deal. Come to this home, her and some other people, and we are going to perform 6 different seances and see who will win, because the house was haunted. The house had a history. And the person who kind of tricks May, our main character, as well as these other people there, she has an agenda. And May, when she ends up going, she goes because she herself has an agenda. It was very creepy, very atmospheric. It was a fun ride. It was just gothic horror at its finest. I really, really enjoyed this book. So, those are all of the books that I read in December. It was a great reading month overall, and I can't wait for January. I'm hoping I have some really good reads in January as well. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.